Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn are giving off very negative signs with regards to this Deontay Wilder fight. It's been a complete U-turn, a complete 180 since the Helenius bout. I'll give you some examples. So Hearn is constantly saying, if the fight happens, if the Saudis can come up with a deal that's agreeable to all parties, if Deontay Wilder's side want it. Well, with regards to Deontay Wilder's side, they haven't given off any indication that they don't want the fight. Wilder's manager said that he's very optimistic. We're talking about Shelly Finkel, of course, that the fight can happen in early 2024. I mean, in this interview, Eddie Hearn was even alluding to time limitations and all this kind of thing. Well, why would there be time limitations on negotiating for this fight? Neither Anthony Joshua nor Deontay Wilder is a world champion, so they don't have mandatories. Why would there be any type of time limitations? Doesn't make any sense. And then, of course, he's downplaying how good Deontay Wilder is. Now, look, Deontay Wilder has been overrated by certain sections of the boxing public for a long time, but normally when a fight is going to happen between two guys, both promoters will start bigging both of the fighters up. That's what they do because they're trying to sell it to the public as an amazing fight. This is what they did in the run-up to the Wilder Fury fights. You had Bob Arum, Frank Warren, and all the PBC guys saying, this is the fight between the two best heavyweights in the world. These are the two elite guys. Never mind Anthony Joshua, who has the rest of the belts. This is where it's at. This is the only fight in heavyweight boxing that matters. Those are the noises they were making. They were talking both guys up. But here, Eddie Hearn is talking Deontay Wilder down, saying he's never beaten a top 5 heavyweight. Well, I'm not sure he's never beaten a top 5 heavyweight because rankings change all the time. There may have been a time when Luis Ortiz was legitimately a top 5 heavyweight. It's certainly not now, obviously. But in terms of beating an elite heavyweight, of course, Deontay Wilder hasn't beaten a Klitschko. He obviously hasn't beaten Tyson Fury. When Anthony Joshua was world champion, he never beat him either. So, yeah, there's some validity to Eddie Hearn's criticisms. I just find the timing to be very curious and quite worrying, to be honest with you. And Anthony Joshua, after he knocked out Robert Helenius, immediately exited the ring. You guys noticed that? And he actually admitted in a subsequent interview that he didn't want to be interviewed inside the ring. And I suspect, I could be wrong, that one of the reasons he didn't want to be interviewed inside the ring is because he didn't want to be put on the spot about the Deontay Wilder fight and whether it was going to be next. Now, he did come back into the ring and the question was put to him and you saw how he answered the question. He started talking about his back and then he walked off. These aren't positive signs, folks. I just have to be real here. So if this fight don't happen, I'm going to listen to what Deontay Wilder's team say about it because to me, they sound far more optimistic and far more positive and far more keen on the fight than Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn do. I hope the fight happens. Yes, I've said that Anthony Joshua needs several more fights before fighting Deontay Wilder. But the thing is, Eddie Hearn has been saying that the fight's going to happen in December or January for the past few months. You can't promise the public that and then do a 180 because it then looks like you're just using Deontay Wilder's name for clout. If you're going to promise the public something, you better deliver. Or I'll certainly be here criticizing you for not delivering, for ducking a fight that you said was nailed on to happen. Anthony Joshua is in a rebuilding phase of his career. We get that. If he's not ready for a Deontay Wilder, then say, well, we might fight Wilder next, but we'll see how AJ looks against Helenius. If he doesn't look that good, we won't fight Wilder then. We'll have a few more rebuilding fights. Just be honest. When you start doing this duplicitous, dishonest thing, that's what gets the fans' backs up. And Anthony Joshua needs all the fans he can get right now. Let's be real. He might not care what critics and what have you say within the public, but he should care because they're the ones who are ultimately going to determine how much money he makes for the remainder of his career. He struggled to sell out the O2. In fact, the O2 wasn't sold out. Back in the days when Anthony Joshua was champion, he could have literally sold out fighting anybody. So it's an indication of how far Anthony Joshua's star has fallen. The fact he couldn't even sell out the O2. The one thing Anthony Joshua always had going for him was his pugilistic integrity. When he was champion, he behaved the way you would want a champion to behave. He tried to fight everybody. Anyone who says otherwise is just lying. He made an offer through his network, DAZN, to Deontay Wilder for over $100 million. That's not cap, that's not fake, that's the actual network sitting Wilder and his management team down in the room and saying, here's the contract, sign on the dotted line, you get the AJ fight. No one can refute that. Wilder and his team admitted that yes, they were in that room and the contract was right there. So AJ tried to fight Deontay Wilder when he was champion. That's a fact. Maybe Wilder would have knocked him out in a round. Maybe Wilder would still knock him out in a round. That's not the point. The point is he tried to fight the best. He tried to unify. I mean, he unified with Klitschko at the earliest opportunity. That was for the vacant WBA belt. Joshua already had the IBF belt. He didn't have to fight Klitschko for that vacant belt. He could have just sat on his belt for years, the one IBF belt, and milked it like Wilder did. Wilder had the opportunity to fight for that vacant WBA belt against Klitschko and chose not to. He chose to stay on the safe side of the ropes and watch AJ do it. Wilder also could have unified with Joseph Parker, chose not to do that. Anthony Joshua did it instead. So as champion, Anthony Joshua was exemplary with regards to his pugilistic integrity. And so even though he couldn't cut it at the elite level, ultimately, he got schooled by Usyk twice, got knocked out by Andy Ruiz. I, for one, respected his integrity with regards to boxing, the type of champion he tried to be. But things change. As fighters age and they get disillusioned with the sport, disillusioned with the industry, disillusioned with the public, they can start to act differently. And I fear that's what we're now seeing with Anthony Joshua, that he's abandoning the pugilistic integrity he once had and going down this road of deceiving the public, Tyson Fury style. And some people have said, oh, it's not right to blame Anthony Joshua for promising the Wilder fight because it wasn't him doing it. It was Eddie Hearn for the last few months. Well, Eddie Hearn speaks on behalf of Anthony Joshua. He's his promoter. If your promoter is constantly promising that you're going to fight this particular opponent next, and you know it's not going to happen or it's not locked in, then you would stop him from doing that. You would stop him from saying that. Because when the fight don't happen, you're going to get the backlash. So your promoter's putting you in a bad position. The fact that Anthony Joshua didn't stop Eddie Hearn from promising everybody the Deontay Wilder fight next shows that he's complicit, that he co-signed the stuff that Eddie Hearn was saying. Now, I've heard some people suggest that both AJ and Wilder might have another fight in the interim before facing each other. The only way I could accept AJ having another fight is if it's with Deontay Wilder's consent and is if they actually sign for the fight before those interim fights take place. Obviously, if one of them were to lose their interim fight, it would affect the fight against each other, AJ against Deontay Wilder. But this is done many times. I mean, back in the days, obviously there were incidents where it went very badly wrong for certain fighters. For example, Tommy Morrison and Lennox Lewis were set to fight when they were both champions. They did fight eventually several years later when they didn't have belts. But years earlier, when they were both champions, they were set to fight in a unification. Tommy Morrison took a tune-up fight against a guy called Michael Bent, and he got knocked out in one round. Therefore, his fight with Lennox Lewis went down the tubes. But understand, he'd already signed for the Lewis fight before that Bent fight. Bent fight was just a tune-up. So anyway, yeah, they could do something like that. AJ could have a tune-up, Wilder could have a fight against whoever, but sign to fight each other before that. That I could accept. Anything else than that, I can't accept. If you're going to promise the public something, you better deliver it. That's my take on it. Give me your take in the comment section below. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.